of course, the key point is the biggest socio-political show in Ghana, right? For some years now, we are leading the chart, popping the chart like that. So it has a wide coverage, and so they heard that I'd made allegations of corruption against Kissi Agyabeng, the Special Prosecutor, and the office itself. I said the office had become a crime scene, and the other things are mentioned. So based on that, I should come and clarify. Of course, there are other issues I raised, conflict of interest, and then collusion. My case being that Kissi Agyabeng himself confessed that he saw Ofori-Atta make efforts to leave, and his efforts to prevent Ofori-Atta from leaving did not succeed. But the efforts he described are woefully inadequate. There was the most potent one, which he left out. That is to say, blow the whistle, come and tell the people of Ghana that Ofori-Atta is about to travel. I want to stop him, and people are frustrating me, right? He didn't do so. So those are the things I said against the office and Kissi Agyabeng. So they asked me to come and do some clarifications. I'm not under any investigation, okay? There's no criminal case against me. We are fighting corruption, and so through analysis, we make comments. So they wanted to see how I can expatiate on my comments in order to help their work. So for me, I was open to it. I went.
Oh, okay.
Then, let me wait for your next question.
Right. So then we can then assume that you helped with the evidence that they asked you to bring, or the assistance they needed to help them ascertain the fact that you said the office was becoming a crime scene, or they had become corrupt, for lack of better expression.
Yes. So we haven't reached that stage. You know, when you're going to these committees for that are set up to do inquiries, there are some things that have to be done. So I basically, my lawyers looked at it and had some issues, and I agreed. So we raised those legal issues. We don't rush, law, there's procedure. Justice not only ought to be done, but it manifestly ought to be seen to be done. So the procedure is very important. The optics, very, very important. So we raised some issues that have to do with optics.
Okay.
And making that will affect the work of the committee. So there are optics and also issues of substance. They can affect the work of the committee. So eventually, the committee agreed, and then they said, okay, they will look at those issues and then come back.
Okay.
So when they are ready, then they will issue a new invitation.
Okay. So there was general understanding, and then you are expected to be invited again to assist further. Is that the understanding?
Yes. I'm willing to assist. Yes. So when they are ready, they will call me again and then we'll go. But we are even going to do a demonstration. I'm looking for people to help. So those who have heard me, if you are interested, we'll form a committee and they will organize the demonstration. I'm extremely constrained for time, but I know Ghanaians want to help the process. So we are announcing people who have time on their hands who can help organize a demonstration on this matter. They should get in touch so that we'll do it. We'll beat this matter to the end. We'll have to beat it to the end. Kissi Agyabeng has to leave. The way he himself has confessed that he saw Ofori-Atta leave, and if you look at the lackluster things he said he did, and even some of the organizations are now even contesting. NIB, the person has spoke with, said no, he never saw any letter from Kissi Agyabeng asking for help to arrest Ofori-Atta. So considering that this matter, Kissi has to leave, there has to be a demonstration. Some Ghanaians who have time on their hands should help us organize. When you are organizing a demonstration, there's a lot of time. I'm extremely constrained now. So some well-wishers should come together. Let's form a committee. Then they would help organize logistics, etc.
Okay.
Then we'll do the demo. Kissi has to go.
We'll look at
Kissi has to go.
We'll come shortly to the timelines of the demonstration and what kinds of assistance we'll be needing to stage it. But you earlier indicated that you went with your lawyers. Was that a problem? We know that usually you would have legal representation, but was it a problem that you went with more than one?
Yes, absolutely. The officer who came out indicated that that the officer who met us and was going to usher us in, he told me that I was entitled to one lawyer. There and then my lawyer shot back and said, no, it can't happen. No, that's not a law of Ghana. So we protested. But it's a very serious matter. Considering that it has happened, it means that it's likely that this is not the first time. So we have to call the OSP out for that. That they can't tell their officers to tell the general public that you are entitled to only one lawyer. No, that's not our law. No. So we pointed that out.
But at least there could be a cap as to, because you can't also go with maybe 10 lawyers. Because in an interesting case of maybe Mr. Foriata and how there is public interest in the case, if he, for instance, decides to attend to the invitation of the OSP and goes with extra number of lawyers, numbering probably between 10 and 15, that will also be an overkill. So there should be a cap to it, no?
Yes, there should be a cap, but I'm not sure it should be a cap at 10 or 15. There should be a cap that, okay, the OSP officers, they have conference rooms. I've been there. I reported this NDA matter, so I've been there a number of times. So I know how some of their conference rooms look like. Oh, there are conference rooms that can take 15, 20 lawyers, and there will still be space. Okay. So they can, sometimes you all be jostled in there. So, yes, there should be a cap. But as to say 15, I'm not sure I want to just agree. Okay. So we have to just make it clear that no, there can be no limit on that. If we had gone with, let's say, 50 or 100 lawyers, obviously, if anything going above 20, it begins to look a bit odd. But for some, when Governor Adami went to CID, remember how many lawyers he went to? I saw a certain huge number in the media.
Okay.
If lawyers want to come and support, why not?
Right.
And listening to see the various angles. We should be able to. These are very serious matters.
Certainly.
They are extremely serious. What I'm upset about, I'm surprised Ghanaians are not waking up today. Your chief prosecutor tells you that he sees his key suspect, the crown jewel, the most valuable player. For those who do football, the most valuable player is leaving the country, and your chief prosecutor says he didn't know how to invite Ghanaians to come and help. And the Constitution is very clear in the preamble, in Article 1, Clause 1, in Article 35, and then in Article 125, that the sovereignty of Ghana resides in the people. So if a public institution is frustrating you, you are supposed to come and tell us, because when they are frustrating you, they are doing the wrong thing. So the oath of secrecy does not cover wrong. This one is obstruction of justice, etc. Because Kissi's case is that NIB was frustrating him, national security was frustrating him, immigration was frustrating. These are very serious allegations. So I asked Ghanaians to sit up. I'm sure we heard that interview. Maybe you should re-air everything he said. He has come to indict other public institutions, and we are quiet. He has come to indict other public. This is a matter that by now we should be thinking of doing a commission of inquiry.
Right.
It's a matter that we should be doing a commission of inquiry. We can't allow this to happen. So he is saying that NIB frustrated, and as I've said, I've spoken with somebody at NIB who was in charge at the time, and he's denying it. First, I was berating that person, but now the person said, no, he didn't receive anything from Kissi. So meaning that Kissi Agyabeng must come and prove that. It's a matter that by now we should be doing a commission of inquiry.
Right.
It's not a joking matter.
Okay.
There must be a demonstration on this matter. It's not every time that we just go to Article 146 proceedings to remove the person. No, sometimes ultimately we have what we call civic oversight. The citizens have the power to supervise public institutions. That is what in governance we call civic oversight. Just like you hear parliamentary oversight. So Parliament has oversight over the executive, Then ultimately we, the people of Ghana, civic, we have oversight over the whole of the public sector.
Okay.
So we must get up. A demonstration invokes the civic oversight. Let's stop leaving such serious matters to a few people. Okay. That's why this one deserves to go through a demonstration first. Because I think if we don't get up and do that, we will not build a stronger society. When you turn up for the demonstration, that's the constitution you are defending. Your chief prosecutor comes to tell you that he saw the kingpin, he saw the most valuable player running away. and he didn't know how to blow the alarm so that, hey, Munchino, a man from Rio, you don't know how to summon public help. You don't know how to summon the public to come and help.
Maybe two final questions before you take leave of us. The concern also was, what was the atmosphere like? Was Kissi Agyabeng himself at the meeting? Did you see him? Did he interact with you? And what generally was the mood like at the meeting?
Generally, at a point, very cordial. That's inside at a point. But I know naturally when you begin to raise arguments, illegal arguments, that seems to frustrate a certain side. They won't be happy. It's normal. I would say that was something untoward. People will get defensive. You know, when people take positions and they are trying to dislodge them from those positions, sometimes they would resist. So that one, well, what matters is if ultimately they were dislodged, then that's it.
Okay. And finally...
So that side, fine. The one I'm not happy about, that's when the underling tried to restrict the number of lawyers we've complained about. Yeah.
Okay. And finally, about the planned demonstration. So do you have any timelines in mind now that you're asking like-minded Ghanaians who believe in this ideology that the OSP failed in ensuring Ken Ofori-Atta stays within the jurisdiction? If people want to support, what was the plan?
So they should come. The first few that will come, then we'll constitute them into a committee. As I said, I've organized a demo before. Remember in 2022, I did the Kumipreku Reloaded.
Reloaded, yes.
And when we're done, the lesson I learned is that there's no small demonstration. There is nothing like a small demonstration. So I've learned my lesson. This one, I'm not able to afford one. The time especially. So we need people to come. So we all coalesce together. Then those who have more time on their hands will do the organizing committee. They will go around, do all the logistics. Okay. On the day, also some of us will be helping the organization from the back, but instead of leading. Then on the day, we'll all appear. Yes. Okay. But the organization there's a lot of logistical things to do when you are organizing placards, etc. I'll be talking to Oliver to see, but it's not always about Oliver. Oliver should not be that's Oliver Bakavomawo. He should not always be the chief demonstrator. Other Ghanaians should come up. This matter affects all of us.
Certainly
affects all of us.
Thank you so much for at least giving us some inside information as to how the meeting went between yourself and the OSP, Martin Kpebu. And you heard private legal practitioner Martin Kpebu there. He honored an invitation to him by the special prosecutor after he had granted a number of interviews and appeared on a number of programs here at Media General, where he more or less called the office of the special prosecutor as being corrupt or engaging in activities that are at variance with what is expected of that office. And key amongst the issue he was particularly concerned about has to do with the exit of former Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta from the jurisdiction, when the special prosecutor Kissi Agyabeng himself said that he knew or had prior information that the former Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta was about to leave the country. And according to Martin Kpebu, having known that information, the special prosecutor could have taken more stringent action to prevent Ken Ofori-Atta from leaving. And because he had failed to do that, he has to resign as the special prosecutor. And on the back of that, he is also asking for support from other Ghanaians, well-meaning or like-minded Ghanaians, to come out in their numbers to support a future demonstration that he's seeking to organize to put pressure on Kissi Agyabeng to resign as the special prosecutor. So we would let you know how all of this unfold in the coming days, because he says that some preliminary agreement has been arrived at between himself and the office of the special prosecutor, and they are likely to invite him again, and he is willing to assist them to get to the bottom of why he believes the office isn't up to task, or the special prosecutor himself is not up to task and must resign. So it's quite a fluid issue. Would try and monitor how it flows and update you subsequently in all of our bulletins. This is still 3FM 92.7. You're listening to Hot Edition, and we are going on to some other stories this evening. And the government of Ghana has been granted a 30-day window to file its defense in the substantive case concerning the suspension of Chief Justice Gertrude Torkonoo. This follows a ruling today by the Community Court of Justice, the ECOWAS Court, that dismissed the preliminary objections filed by the Republic of Ghana challenging the court's jurisdiction. Sitting in Abuja, the ECOWAS Court unanimously held that the case is admissible and that the court has the jurisdictional competence to hear the matter. Ghana's Deputy Attorney General, Dr. Justice Treve had argued that the court was manifestly incompetent and that the substantive application was inadmissible and had no chance of success. However, all these grounds were dismissed by the judges. The court ruled that it has jurisdiction because the case disclosed a prima facie case of violation of the Chief Justice's human rights, especially her right to fair hearing, dignity, and right to work. While the court asserted its competence to hear the case, it dismissed the application by the Chief Justice, or the former Chief Justice, I should say, and her lawyers, that is Femi Falana, for provisional measures. The court reasoned that the suspension had already taken place over 3 months before she sought legal redress, thereby making the request for immediate measures unwarranted. The substantive hearing of the case will be scheduled after the 30-day period given to the government of Ghana to formally file its defense. Let's go to the phone lines again now. This time around, another private legal practitioner, Mr. Mam Hesse, has joined us. Good evening, sir. Thank you for your time.
Good evening, sir. Thanks for having me.
Right.
Good evening to your listeners. Yeah.
Right. I'm sure this is a case that certainly we've spoken to you about a number of times. Even the first day that Madam Torkonoo took it to the ECOWAS Court. Well, what are your initial thoughts on today's hearing, where her substantive case has been dismissed, and then Ghana's position seeking to say that the court did not have the jurisdiction to listen or the power to hear the case was also dismissed?
Yes, indeed. An application for injunction is a discretion of the court. It's at the discretion of the court, and inherent in it is supposed to be timeous, so that which one is seeking to injunct should be subsisting, and not that it's rendered moot before one can bring that particular action. Indeed, there are certain elements that the court will look out for. The court will look out for the element of hardship, irreparable damage, balance of convenience. Would also look at the prima facie substance of the case before it, as hinged in the application for injunction. And in all of these things, when it is apparent before the court that the timeousness of it, or there is no urgency as brought by the application will be refused. In simple terms, if the application is brought and the horse has already bolted, then there is no mechanism to hold the horse to the stable. In that practical state, that is what the court has sought to put out. Indeed, it is a situation that which the former Chief Justice is seeking to injunct had already happened, and there was nothing to injunct. That is why the court concluded that there was no urgency in respect of the application, and also it did not exhibit any exceptional circumstances.
So,
and also to your second point.
Yes, go ahead.
To your second point. Indeed, I had mentioned on your platform and also on TV3 that indeed the ECOWAS Court has jurisdiction in this particular matter, given the protocol and the revised treaty that brought the court in sometime in the early 2000s. And it was far-reaching for one to imagine that the court never had jurisdiction to entertain the matter before it, when it has everything to do with human rights, as to whether the violations are deemed so or not. It is for the court to determine. And I wondered and shuddered how one could imagine that the court never had jurisdiction. And it never surprised me that this turned out to be negative for the state, albeit the Attorney General.
Okay, so two quick things. So on the first issue of the case that Madam Torkonoo sent to the ECOWAS Court, could it be that in the very early days when she was asked to step aside for investigation to be to start, when even before a prima facie case was established, could it be that if she had sent it to the ECOWAS Court at the time, they could have ruled, and if that ruling had gone in her favor, it could have suspended or stopped what Ghana was doing, or the committee that had been set up to establish whether or not there was a prima facie case against her?
Yes. You remember that she started off with some early cases in time,
yes,
which sought to stifle the works of the committee and to point out the internal processes that she deemed to be flawless. And indeed, those cases that she took to the Supreme Court, challenging that, amongst other things, the procedures to be adopted were not right, whether it ought to adopt a procedure for committee of inquiry or the CI-47, amongst other infractions, which subsequently led to the warrant of suspension. Now, the circumstance of time would have been that if she had brought the matter around that material time, it would have helped the situation a lot for her as far as the injunction application is concerned.
Okay. And on the latter part of your earlier submission about whether or not the ECOWAS Court had jurisdiction to have heard the case, they make the case that, or they make the point that they dismissed what Ghana was saying, where Ghana was trying to tell them that the substance of the case, they did not have powers to listen or to hear the case, and so it should be dismissed in the first place. Is it that because Ghana has ratified and is a member of ECOWAS, that is why ECOWAS has that jurisdiction over over us to be able to hear cases from Ghana, or it was primarily because it was a human rights concern that the court raised?
Now, if you look at the revised treaty that set the court up sometime in 2000, it has to do with the protocol. And by virtue of the fact that Ghana had ratified the protocol through Article 75, which deals with treaties and all of that between Ghana and external bodies, albeit international bodies or international institutions, Ghana was enjoined to the protocol for ECOWAS, and of which ECOWAS, the ECOWAS Court had also adopted the Charter for African Human Rights or People's Rights. And by that, the court was affixed with jurisdiction to hear all matters within the ECOWAS the ECOWAS territorial region, and also where matters have been decided upon, the court always relies on or will rely on member states to enforce its decisions. Indeed, the court was also affixed with original and appellate jurisdictions as well. So the court at all times was affixed with jurisdiction to hear matters of human rights that would come from the ECOWAS jurisdiction, which includes immigration and amongst other legal propositions or areas of law that the mandate or the treaty affixed to the court.
Okay. Thanks for that education. And finally, before you take leave of us, we know that Ghana has 30 days to respond or put up a defense as directed by the ECOWAS Court. What implications could that have for the country, and what could this case mean for judicial independence and governance in Ghana?
I mean, indeed, it was a situation that the Chief Justice had wanted to move for judgment in default of defense. But the ECOWAS Court set that aside, or they struck it out or set that aside, and directed Ghana to file her defense within 30 days, so that the matter would be concluded upon. Now, I mean, the local courts always have their independence when it comes to judicial independence. ECOWAS Court will not necessarily intervene in the local laws, but where the matter involves abuse of human rights pertaining to private members, and indeed the revised treaty deals with private members and also institutions or multinationals as well, who are faced with such infractions of the law. What it also means is that in the hypothetical situation where we find, assuming without admitting, we find the Honorable former Chief Justice successful, then we are going to have a de jure Chief Justice who will be in the presence of Justice Bafo Boni, and a de facto Chief Justice who will be in the person of Madam Torkornoo. Now, the jury means that the state, by the investigator that happened, has conferred that legal honor on him, that legal recognition, so he will be the jury. And then the de facto would mean that in the hypothetical situation, because we are not the court, that the court, that she's successful before the court, then, and where all of these things are set aside, then that would create her to be a de facto. And she will now have to bring an application to challenge the jury Chief Justice, that whether or not he can occupy the position as a Chief Justice. So we are dealing with hypothetical situations, but we have a lot of things to unfold in the future for our constitutional jurisprudence and education as well.
Christian Mamhersi, thank you always for your time and your thoughts on these matters. And you had a private legal practitioner there, Christian Mamhersi, helping us understand the legal backings of some of these issues, or how all of this means when it comes to the legal jurisprudence of our country, and the fact that we are a member of the ECOWAS, how this decision by the ECOWAS Court could impact or influence how laws are implemented or interpreted here in Ghana. So we'll definitely let you know what the next 30 days hold for Ghana as the Attorney General's office prepare their response for the ECOWAS Court in the coming days. This is still 3FM 92.7. You're listening to Hot Edition. We are live around the world on our website, 3news.com. And still on the same subject matter, though, a lawyer for the former Chief Justice Gertrude Torkonoo says the dismissal of his client's injunction application by the ECOWAS Court does not change the ongoing human rights claim.
When the woman went to ECOWAS Court and also went to the High Court in Accra and went to the Supreme Court, he told everybody that while this case is pending, please hold your horses. They went and presented a report. They went and nominated a new person. They took the person to Parliament. The minority said, no, what you are doing is wrong. Then they went ahead and now sworn in a new Chief Justice. What do you think they have done to the ECOWAS Court? They have fixed them with a fair complaint. That we are finished and we now have a new Chief Justice. So what is the point of giving any interim measure at this stage? It's better to hear the case. So what the ECOWAS Court is saying is that, look, as far as these interim matters are concerned, we are no longer interested. We are no longer interested. We want to hear the matter.
And that is the lawyer for Justice, former Chief Justice Gertrude Torkonoo ni Ayikwe Otu. We go on to some other stories this evening.
Yes, into education, government has earmarked 65 million cedis to provide free education for persons with special needs. The funds will support the procurement of specialized learning tools and include these learners in the school feeding program. The Minister of Education, Haruna Idrisu, announced this at a news conference to outline key education components of the 2026 budget statement. He highlighted government's continued commitment to free senior high school, revealing that 4.2 billion cedis has been allocated to sustain the program next year. According to the minister, part of the funding will address challenges associated with the double track system to make secondary education more efficient and competitive.
Of many of those sanitary facilities, we are talking to some donors to see how we get that done. A significant intervention to end the double track phenomena. You remember double track? Those of you who said red, gold, green. This one, not for traffic lights purposes, but for us in education, it necessarily and avoidably contributed to low quality of education because the number of time hours spent between students and teachers was affected by the double track. Many of the school girls and boys spend more time at home and less time in school. We can respond to it through expanded infrastructure, through a digital provision, and we're happy to announce a new flagship program known as the Ghana Secondary Learning Improvement Program, a 2-year World Bank supported project valued at $180 million. The World Bank team is in town. They are doing this assessment across the country, and they would also even further support some of the e-block initiative that was started and not completed. So be assured that we would come back to you. In 2026, a total of 1.1 billion has been allocated under the Ghana Secondary Education Learning Improvement Program to execute infrastructure expansion and, more importantly, quality improvement, which is about teachers. I have maintained all the time that the quality of a student is a function of a good teacher.
That was Education Minister Haruna Idrisu. Now, he's saying government is committing 60 million cedis to expand free education to learners with special needs and provide the necessary education learning needs.
I have submitted a comprehensive policy paper to Cabinet to look at the possibility of introducing free education for all learners in special and integrated schools across the country. I intend that if I get the support of the President and Cabinet, for which I trust I have, from 1st January 2026, we should be able to provide for the needs of all learners with special needs in our country, including the provision of devices for persons who are visually impaired, those with hearing difficulties, and others. What I noticed as I went to our Akropong was that even feeding, they still depended on government grants. That is not good enough. So we extend school feeding to all the special needs and integrated schools in the country. And for me, that will be the best intervention of meeting the needs of distressed, marginalized learners.
That was Education Minister Haruna Idrisu. And away from that, Ghana's presidential jet, the Falcon 900 EX, has finally returned to the country after an 8-month extensive overhaul in France. This has sparked debate whether or not President Mahama should use the flight for official trips. There's more in the following report. Jubilee House sources say the president is ready and willing to use the Falcon EX, but will not do so until the Air Force, which manages the aircraft, gives it a clean bill of health. The 15-year-old jet, purchased in 2009, developed significant defects during a routine inspection earlier this year, including fuel tank problems and issues with one of its turbofan engines. On 11 July 2025, the late Defense Minister, Dr. Edward Omaniboama, told Parliament that the aircraft was unavailable to fly the Vice President back to Ghana after a short illness because it had developed risky multifocal defects. The Falcon EX was flown to the Dassault Falcon Service MRO facility at Paris-Le Bourget, PLB, on 11 March 2025 to undergo its mandatory 24-monthly or 1,600 flight-hour inspection and repairs. The state of the presidential jet and the president's reliance on other aircraft has revived calls for Ghana to acquire a new dedicated presidential aircrafts. Those calls have intensified in the wake of a recent helicopter crash that killed 2 cabinet ministers, 3 government officials, and 3 Air Force personnel. The Finance Minister, Dr. Kissi Agyabeng, in the 2026 budget statement, announced government's plan to procure 4 new helicopters and 2 planes for the Ghana Armed Forces as part of major retooling and modernization.
And beyond the politics of it and how Parliament is currently debating issues about the funding for the aircraft, well, let's also have it at the back of our minds that there are the security concerns as well. And the security consultant Emmanuel Kuting has joined us on this subject of the presidential jet. Mr. Kuting, good evening. Thank you for joining us on 3FM.
Martin, thank you for having me, and very good evening to our cherished listeners.
What would your thoughts be on the fact that the manufacturers of the aircraft say that they have ticked all the boxes and retooled and rekit the aircraft so it is okay for use by the owner, which in this case is the President of the Republic? Does this overhaul from the manufacturer give the all clear for the President to start using the aircraft?
Under normal circumstances, there shouldn't be any challenge when this clearance is given. But the subculture within our Ghana Air Force, where there are levels of secrecy and our culture of maintenance, that is the challenge. And rightly so, you see the presidency is saying that the president will only use the aircraft if the Air Force give it a clean bill to use. Why is the presidency not trusting the manufacturers and the Ghana Air Force? If you look at our constitution, it is the Ghana Air Force that are in charge of our president's travel. So the burden of responsibility rests with them. So if the presidency doesn't trust the manufacturers, but rather want to put its trust on the responsibility bearers, which is the Ghana Air Force, I would beg to differ, because our level of maintenance and the activities that have gone on within our Ghana Air Force leaves much to be desired. You see, we are not learning from best practices. If you go across Nigeria here, they have a whole military academy in charge of aircraft repairs. They even have a section that is entirely in charge of the presidential fleet. So I asked myself, we send our men and women from Ghana to go and train in Nigeria. We take some to China, some to India and other places. Why can't we look at the long term, having our own systems like that, such that we can improve on our maintenance culture? The Falcon we are talking about is a good aircraft. There's no doubt about that. The challenge with the Falcon is our culture of maintenance. I always use this example, Martin. You see the Air Force One, it's over 40 years. But because it is properly maintained, it is still agile and efficient as new. So we need to retool our Ghana Air Force to begin with. But before we can do the retooling, we need to kind of do soul searching, look at the activities that have gone on within the Ghana Air Force over the period. You can imagine how they handle the Z helicopters. We had 4, now it's left with 2. If you want to go into the details, how they were robbing parts and those kind of things, it's not a good practice.
So the concern you are raising about the maintenance culture, that falls squarely at the door of the Air Force, the Ghana Air Force, doesn't it? since they have oversight responsibility about the health of the aircraft. So it's not government, it is the Air Force that must ensure that maintenance is up to scratch and that it is okay for the president to use it.
I'm not putting the blame on government. I'm putting the blame on the Air Force. If you listen to me carefully, I'm not talking about government here, Martin. I'm just simply saying
I get the point. I get the point you are making, but I'm saying that, one would question that as military men or as security officials, these issues should not even be an issue for public to be discussing, because you would expect that they know what they should be doing, but they are not doing it, right?
Precisely. That is precisely the point, Martin. And you see, every country has its code of ethics, especially when it comes to presidential travel. There should have been a dedicated team of engineers, like I mentioned, the Nigerian experience, where at least we can do basic servicing of our aircraft, and in particular our presidential aircraft. So under the circumstances, I will still maintain my point that the president should not risk his life flying in it. Today, I understand it's better this some military commanders have used it. And even the way the presidential jet is being used, it doesn't bring respect to the presidency. Everybody can just get out any burst of influence, call the presidency, and it is released. In other jurisdictions, the presidential jet is treated as a national security asset. But in our part of the world, because of politics, we take everything for a given. And it saddens me, Martin Asiedu, that Ghana, with our international reputation, we cannot boast of an international airline. At the same time, the presidential jet is always in the news for the bad reasons. It's not for maintenance. It has left the president somewhere and it cannot return. And you remember under Akufo-Addo, this presidential jet left him on several trips. I learned on 3 or 4 occasions, and he has to find his own means to come back or continue with his journey.
Right.
We cannot continue to endure this international embarrassment.
Okay.
I think Ghana deserves a new presidential jet where we can buy from the manufacturers and not from third parties, and see how we can trade the Falcon for other things.
Yeah, but
in its current state, to me, as a security analyst, I wouldn't advise the president to use it.
Okay, that's actually the point I wanted to make for us. Do you? And now you've clarified that. But finally, before you take leave of us, do you think that we should actually bundle all together in terms of the retooling that government is promising the military in general? Should we add the fact that we are retooling the armed forces and that the presidential jet should be part of the conversation? Or they are two separate things and should be given two separate discussions in terms of which one we shouldn't add what the presidential jet should be doing to the fact that it's part of the general military architecture, so we need to start paying attention to it like that?
I think there are two different things, and we have to set our priorities. Even though the presidential craft is a military or security asset, I think we should treat it as a special requirement for the country. We don't have any aircraft that is flying the emblem of our dear country, Ghana. So to me, we should treat the presidential jet as an emergency kind of thing. We cannot allow a president to be going commercial. We are just exposing him to unnecessary risks, and it is not done anywhere. So it is even embarrassing that Ghana, with the name we've made for ourselves internationally and rubbing shoulders with our neighbors, our president is flying commercial. It is embarrassing to the state. Security is very expensive.
Okay.
And as a democracy, if you want to look at the economic dynamics and look at the social issues confronting the country and say, based on that, it is not feasible to acquire the country a presidential jet, then we are losing our statehood.
Okay.
And truth be told, it's better we call it what it is. we need a new presidential jet. Let's remove the nuances of politics and get to work at it.
Thank you, Mr. Kuting, for your time and thoughts. Mr. Emmanuel Kuting is a security consultant and sharing his thoughts on the presidential jet, which he says should be bought fresh and not added to the military aircrafts that we are having a conversation on. This is still 3FM 92.7. Time now for the latest in the world of business. And Bismarck Owusa is with us, giving us the latest in business news in a jiffy. Stay with us.
Hello, good evening, and welcome to Business News on 3FM 92.7 with me, Bismarck Owusa. Coming up tonight, GRA confirms new VAT reforms to take effect January 1, 2026 as Parliament considers proposal to abolish COVID-19 levy, reduce effective VAT rate, and boost business growth. I am Bismarck Owusa. Details of this headline and other stories for you. Stay with me. Thanks for your company. Now to the details. Commissioner General of the Ghana Revenue Authority, GRA, Anthony Kissi Agyabeng, has confirmed that the new VAT reforms announced in the 2026 national budget are expected to take effect from January 1, 2026, once they receive presidential assent before the end of the year. The reforms, which include abolishing the COVID-19 levy, removing the decoupling of GET Fund and NHIS levies from the VAT tax base, eliminating VAT on mineral recognizance and prospecting, reducing the effective VAT rate from 21.9% to 20%, and increasing the registration threshold from 200,000 cedis to 750,000 cedis, are expected to boost household incomes, support businesses, and accelerate economic transformation. Speaking at the 2026 PwC Post-Budget Forum organized in Accra, he said Parliament has already commenced deliberations on the VAT amendment bill, and the GRA is hopeful that lawmakers will give the green light before Christmas.
The respect of the VAT the reform that will be in the bill is currently before Parliament. Actually, from here, Parliament has started looking at it at 10 a.m. So from here, I'm going straight to join my team to make sure that we are responding to their questions and explaining. We are hoping and expecting that we will get parliamentary approval before they rise for the Christmas season, and hoping that the president will also be able to assent to it. So if all these plans goes well, we'll expect that the implementations will start first January 2026. But we will be working with the business community and start engaging to make sure that we plan well and give sufficient time to ensure that those who have to reset their systems are reset, and to ensure that we also get ready for the implementation. So we'll be coming back to you, but the overall plan is to try and get the act passed before the end of the year, and then we can plan for full implementation from January 26th.
And that was Commissioner General of the Ghana Revenue Authority, GRA, Anthony Kissi Agyabeng, speaking at the 2026 PwC Post-Budget Forum held in Accra. In a related development, Director of Institute of Statistical, Social and Economic Research, Professor Robert Darko Osei, has urged government to address system losses within the country's energy distribution sector, noting that improved efficiency is crucial if consumers are to benefit from the expected reduction in logistic costs following the introduction of a new gas processing plant. He was speaking at ECOWAS Post-Budget Forum held in Accra.
Right, and it's reflected in the budget. How come, I think the minister mentioned that the ECB returns are honored. But that is not to say that you can get away with such high transmission costs. So the ECG discussions will have to go on, but there has to be a restructure in terms of our policy, particularly in terms of if we don't get our distribution rights, look, we'll still negotiate with the IDPs and pay and sort of spread our debts over a longer period, but we'll still have debts to pay. Because it will not translate to making the IDPs profitable. And so IDPs will always have a think of it towards India PPAs.
You heard the Director of Institute of Statistical, Social and Economic Research, ISE, Professor Robert Darko say, and that brings us to the end of the business segment on Hot Edition on 3FM 92.7 with me, Bismarck Ausa. For more business stories, please check out our website, 3news.com. Rick Wampoff is here for sports. Please stay.
Hello, good evening, and welcome to the sports segment here on Hot Edition on TFM 92.7. We start off from the Ghana Premier League, where Asante Kotoko ended their two-game winless streak with a hard-fought 2-1 victory over Young Apostles in their outstanding match week 6 Ghana Premier League match at the Babera Sports Stadium, which took place on Wednesday afternoon. After a dominant but goalless first half, Hubert Jau opened the scoring with a powerful strike early in the second half. Young Apostles quickly equalized through a Richmond Opoku header. However, Asante Kotoko pushed for a winner in an intense end-to-end finish, and captain Sambro O'Neill sealed all 3 points with a late stoppage time penalty. The result lifts Kotoko to 5th place on 19 points, still with one game in hand. Let's do some more, where all eyes, especially interested in African football, will turn tonight to Rabat, Morocco, as they host the much anticipated 2025 CAF Awards. Now, African continent awaits the moment when CAF will finally reveal the winners in its major categories, led by the race for the Men's African Player of the Year, where Mohamed Salah comes up against Victor Osimhen and Ashraf Hakimi. Now, this edition of the ceremony comes immediately after the international break, adding a lot more interest and intrigue to the ceremony, and you can get updates from that on our social media handles at 3SportsGH. Now, away from that, let's do some more, where the list of countries to compete in the intercontinental playoffs to determine the 2 remaining nations to qualify for the 2026 FIFA World Cup is now complete. Bolivia, Suriname, New Caledonia and Jamaica have joined Democratic Republic of Congo, and Iraq in the mini tournament that will be played between March 23 and 31 in 2026 in Mexico. Now, based on the FIFA rankings, DR Congo and Iraq have been seeded as finalists in the mini tournament, with each nation set to face the winner of the semi-final matchups. A special draw to pair the semi-finalists as Bolivia, New Caledonia, Jamaica and Suriname will take place at the FIFA headquarters in Switzerland on Thursday, November 20. That's how we bring an end to Hot Edition here on TFM 92.7. My name is Ori Kwampafo, and we'll be back again same time tomorrow.